I assume that you've looked at the one that I've sent you so that you should be relatively familiar with the thing. So the layout basically is the columns from left to right, the major capital items listed and grouped together by type. Started with the roofs and the components of the roof, the main building, the components of the main building, the garages, outbuildings, roadways and parking, walls and fencing, safety and security, and gardens. We don't have swimming pool and stuff like that. So that is the first item. As you can see, that is required as per Prescribed Management Rule 22.1a. Then the next column is the present condition, PMR 22.1b. And you can see that I've kept it relatively simple by just stating, is it an excellent condition, good, poor, and fair. I think that is sufficient information to give you an idea of what the conditions are. Then the next three columns, PMR 22.1c, requires a maintenance date. I've just put the year that we plan to do that, the budget year or the financial year we plan to do it. I don't give exact dates. Date that you're going to repair. You can see I don't really have anything in there because my argument is that you only repair something when it breaks, and you do not really know when something is going to break. So it's mainly maintenance and replace. Replace goes with the next one, the expected life in years. For example, the painting. We know that, especially here in the Cape, that you need to paint every 10 years. That goes with the main buildings, 10 years. Okay, then the next one is your cost estimate, PMR 22.1d. In here are the values of either what is it going to maintain or to replace. You can't replace painting, it just means that you're going to paint the roof again. You're not going to replace the roof. So that is 10 years. You can see next maintenance due is in 2029 because we painted in 2019. So the expected life is 10 years. Estimated cost is going to be 200,000 Rand. And this is the present value that you put in there. So we've painted 2019, so this is about what it cost us. And so with each and every item, I put an estimated value of what it's going to cost to maintain when it needs to be maintained, or what it's going to cost if we need to replace it, and so on and so forth. Now you can see here that this value here is the sum total of the components. And I will come back to this later because this is important. And the same with main buildings, individual components, garages, outbuildings, roadways and parkways. This we did this year, TARS, and this is what it cost us to resurface the roadways, and so on. So it gives us then a value of about 4 million that it's going to cost this complex to maintain or replace its major capital items. So the next column, accumulated reserve fund, PMR 22.2. That is your past contributions. Now this is something that is calculated automatically for you. So only figure amount that you type into the spreadsheet is this one. At the end of the last financial year, you will know how much money you have in your reserve fund. So you use that figure to type in here. In the note it says it's from the audited financial statements from the last financial year, but at the end of the financial year, the managing agent and the trustees will know, because you have that information available of your savings account, of your investment account, end of that year, financial year, you know what that figure is, and you just type it in here. And in here are the formulas that calculate these values for you. Are you with me?
Can I just ask, if I want to use this spreadsheet as is, if let's say I don't have garages, can I just delete those columns, or must I keep it? Just take the monetary value out.
Yes. Now you can delete these rows, or you change it. If you don't have post boxes, for example, you change that to something else, or you just delete this whole row.
Okay.
It's not going to affect anything. And if you want to add something, say example, you have, this is your safety and security. You have, for example, security cameras, and you want to add that. Of course, I like this row here to be open. What I would do is to just add another row instead rows below. And then I would highlight that whole row, that one, and say copy, put it there, and say paste. Yes. Then I just change that to 7.4. Change this to say security cameras. Then, of course, then I just go through here and say, okay, what is the condition? When do I need to replace it? What is the life expectancy? They're about, say, security cameras about 5 years. Okay. And what is the value of the cameras that you have there? Say that is 300,000 rand. Just type that in. And you can see the accumulated reserve fund has automatically allocated past contribution for you. Does that make sense? As easy as that. Now, why is this breakdown required? Why does the Act require that you know what the funds are that is available for your major capital items? Can somebody tell me why this is necessary to have this breakdown? Why don't we just have 1.1 million in our reserve fund? If something breaks, we just dip into the reserve fund and we fix whatever we need to fix. Is that the way you would do it?
No, surely, because you've budgeted for it, it doesn't mean that you can borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
Exactly.
So we would need to recover where we've used from. So yeah, just because we got 1.1 million in the bank, you can't just use it at your own leisure.
Yes.
The budget is there as a proposed structure.
Yes.
But also, you said 30,000 for gutters. At the time, you'll have to get updated quotes again, and it might not be 30,000 anymore.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, I'll come to that. So this is the reason. What it means is it allocates an amount available for your major capital items in proportion to the values that is here. So all it does is it calculates, it takes this amount, and in relation to that amount, it will calculate percentages of each item. Now, the formulas are hidden. I'm going to just unhide it so that you can see what it looks like. Show columns. So these are my calculator. This column is just a copy of that one. And here you can see this calculates this value as a percentage of the whole of this year. So it does it with all your major items. And then, of course, these values is a percentage of that value. So these values or a percentage of that value. The painting is 38.8% of 515,000 rand. So every time you make a change here, now have a look at those values there. Every time you make a change here, like you said, we got new quotes, and now they say it's going to cost 450,000 rand. Can you see what happened? It automatically changed that value. Changed all the values because now this item, because I've added a higher value there, that percentage becomes higher, and that accumulated reserve fund is adjusted accordingly. So that's the one thing. So the next thing is, if you have to do some work that you haven't budgeted for, but it need work to be done. Let's say, for example, the gutters and downpipes. You had a big storm and it blew the gutters off your building, some of it. So now you need repairs to do on your gutters and downpipes. So the first thing you will have a look at this column and say, okay, we have 30,706 Rand available for gutters and downpipes. So if we have to replace all of them now, it means I'm 90,000 Rand short. And then that 90,000 Rand, I will need to collect if I want to do it in the following year. Is that clear?
Okay.
See, although I've said expected life is 40 years, but things happen and you need to do it unplanned, then you might need to make revision for that. So if we need to do in the next financial year, then I need to add that 90,000 Rand. So, and then in the budget, when we're going to do it, we should have sufficient funds. So that is your accumulated reserve fund past contribution field. All you need to worry about is that. You don't really need to worry about these percentages. It will automatically adjust with whatever you are doing. So I'm going to write this again. So you don't really need to worry about the percentages. It is calculated in terms of PMR 22. So the next column, here you can see on the top there is 2023. That is the upcoming financial year. So this is the year that I'm going now to work on the budget, is on this column, on these figures here. So I can see, okay, I've already decided that we need to do it in the upcoming year. So I just want to copy that. This is how I mark what I need to do and when. So when I look at the overall picture, there, you can see there's blue all over the place. So this gives me a visual picture of when I need to do stuff in the future and what I need to do. The roofs, 2029, the walls, 2029, the road markings, that every 4 years. So it is there. It's a visual picture of your maintenance plan. So let's come now to the financial year. Now we look at the detail. We need to prepare for the AGM and get all our ducks in a row and our values correct. So we see we need to do the gutters. We need to redo the markings, and we need to replace the gate motor battery. And of course, also landscaping. That is to make provision for new plants, that to replace dead plants or whatever. So we make provision for that as well. Okay. So you can see this is what we plan to do in the upcoming financial year. Right, so then we look at these values one by one. Okay, painting. Next one is due 2029. I'm not going to worry too much about that because this figure here was calculated in 2029 when we did the painting. Like I said, it was about 200,000 Rand. Okay, but we've now changed this value. Got the quotes. Somebody told us this is what it's going to cost us. So I update this value here. So now we see, but this is then not going to be enough for the next 7 years. If we need to paint by 2029 again, we've made provision for 200,000 Rand. Now it is up to 450,000 Rand a month. Now we need to adjust these values here. And this is how we do it. This is why this calculator is here. You can see when I updated that 450,000, it updated this value here. You can see automatically fetched that 450,000 Rand. It says we have 108,800 in reserve available for that. We have 7 years remaining before we need to paint again. So this amount that it calculates here is then what we need to make provision for every year for the next 7 years in order to give us the 450,000 Rand. That's the present value. So when we change that figure, it automatically made this calculation. And now I see that this figure here is not going to be enough. It's half of what we actually need. So we need to update this 20,000 Rand to say 49,000 Rand. I round it off, 49,000 Rand. Now, did you see what happened? When I typed in that figure here, it recalculated all these values here because there's a built-in escalation in these formulas. And it calculated for me. So now I know that if we make provision and we put this in the budget, that when the time comes, we will have the money to do that. So there won't be any need for special levies or whatever. This spreadsheet do the calculations for you. So as you get closer, say by 2026, you will again review this replacement value. But at least now for the preceding 3 years, you have collected the higher value. And depending on the amount that you have in your reserve fund, it will do a calculation for you and tell you how much you will then have available, and you can then adjust it accordingly. So at the AGM, people ask me, is this 10-year maintenance plan fixed for 10 years? So I said, no, it isn't. This is a living document that you constantly need to update. And it doesn't mean that the figures here at the bottom, because this figure here say this is the amount that we need to collect for the 2023 financial year. And that is a forecast of the next 9 years that we anticipate. But like we've made changes here, next year we will do the same, and this is going to change. So a 10-year maintenance plan is not cast in concrete. It's a living document. It changes all the time. And every time you do maintenance and you get new values, then you update your spreadsheet. Over time, you also realize that maybe this life expectancy years is optimistic or pessimistic, and you adjust it accordingly to whatever practical value you believe will apply. Gate motors, I know, is about 5 years. The batteries are 3 years. But you play around with this. This is not fixed. Either you use the figures from experience, or you get a professional to do an assessment of your capital items for you, or you speak to your suppliers and they will tell you that is what you use here. So coming back to my financial year budget, so I work through this and look at this in excellent, good, okay, I don't need to give attention to it, good, it's fair. I look for the stuff that is poor, for example, your waterproofing. Okay. But that is waterproofing underneath the roof. Also, like I've indicated, yeah, it's something that we need to do in the 2023 financial year. So we need to get quotes, adjust that value, say 80,000 Rand. I've got 20,000 Rand, I need another 60,000 Rand. Simple calculation, okay? And then of course I also turn that blue. So I work through all of them, and then it gives me a figure at the bottom. This is what our reserve fund need to collect in the next financial year to do the work that we plan to do, and also to make provision for the future maintenance. All these figures that is in white is money that we need to collect for future maintenance. Now I'm satisfied with this amount and say, okay, this is what we need to collect for the reserve fund this year. And then I have a look at, see, okay, what's the impact going to be on our levies? You can see there, it immediately tells me, because we've got two sizes of sections, 8 up and B, there's 14 of each. So it's the ground floor and the top floor. So it immediately tells me that this is what my reserve fund levies is going to be. I see it immediately. So if you want to use this also, and you have various types of sections, then you will have to add it here. Although it is not really necessary if you, in your normal budget, you've made provision for your reserve fund amount. So you will then just transfer this amount to your program that you used to do your levies, and it should calculate that same value. But I just like to see immediately what the impact is going to be. And also because I've integrated my admin budget with this budget, I can immediately see if I go to my financial year. So this is the budget that we present at the AGM. And you can see the reserve fund levies are automatically transferred to that. And so I can immediately see what my total levy is going to be. So when I get to my admin budget and I work with this, I can immediately see what the impact is going to be. You see, I don't work with percentages or whatever. I work with actual figures. Right. So that is basically how it works. Just to get back to major capital items, the conditions, the expected life and your cost estimates. If you are not really capable of doing this, then I recommend you make use of a professional company that can do the assessment for you, and it will look something like this. Okay, this is for a scheme in Johannesburg, and these guys only start implementing their 10-year maintenance plan this year. So they've got these guys to do the inspection from them. And this is what the report looks like. Introduction, the methodology, reference to the legislation, and then I have a locality plan of where the scheme is, aerial photograph, what it looks like, then your sectional plans with your PQs, and then I start with the report. So they work from the one side, start at the gates, take pictures, give their remarks, level of urgency, maintenance due currently. You can see, oh, this current maintenance due, this is a neglected scheme. So once you get this, I think it's worthwhile paying the professionals to do this. This is the report that you get. And then what you will do is you will take these items here and transfer that to your spreadsheet, because that is your major capital items. Now, these guys, at the end, there is their 10-year maintenance plan spreadsheet. You can see it's very similar to mine, except these columns here differs from mine, and then the rest is also the years, make provision, not making provision for that, etc. But the problem with these things is you cannot edit it. You cannot now take this guy's spreadsheet and for the next 10 years, you are going to manage it yourself. This is their intellectual property. So it's not going to be happy if you use it and you don't give them the work to do on your behalf. But basically, you can see it is very similar. Okay, but it's because I cannot edit theirs that I've created my spreadsheet that I can play with as I please. Okay, that is basically it. Are there any questions?
A lot of work went into this.
I agree. I must be honest with you, but I must thank you. I can use this quite well.
I'm glad. So if you can use it, you're welcome to use it. If you need assistance, let me know. I can assist you with getting yours ready for your scheme.
Just interesting that you estimate painting every 10 years. In Cape Town, we work on average 5 to 7 years. And some of my buildings have gone over to 9 years. It really looked bad by 9 years.
So you will then change that. From your experience, you know that needs to be 7 years, and you change it. And then, of course, you will see immediately, depending then on how many years you have left, you just need to come and do your recalculations. Yeah, if you want to change those values.
So it's important to have the correct years in your spreadsheet. It's used in the calculations, the years.
Yeah, definitely, because if you change the years, the term years remaining, it recalculates the whole value.
Yeah,
that is right. So you need to know if you've made changes there. Say, for example, we did 2019. So the next time it will be due will be in 2026. So, okay, so you need to change that to that. That one, I changed the white. Okay, so that is 4 years remaining. So I need to change this year. So, okay, I've got 4 years remaining. I need to collect 85,000 Rand per year in order to have sufficient funds to do it in 2026. So we say make that 85,000, round it off, okay? And it will automatically update the rest for you. So then you can rest assured that in 4 years' time, you will have sufficient money plus what you have in your past contributions to do the painting. Anything else?
Escalation between the years. What is the escalation percentage?
I've made it 7%, which I believe is a good average because it is not that critical. It's important that you have an escalation, but it doesn't need to be exact and follow CPI every year. Because as you get closer to having the work done, say in 2025, you will get a new quote. You say, okay, that is now going to be 80,000 Rand. I have 18,000 Rand available and I now need to 2027, 5 years, is that enough? 80,000 Rand every 15 years you need to look at it. Okay, but we updated that and so, okay, it's going to cost 80,000 Rand, but it's only due, it's in the future. So I'm not going to worry about the escalations until I get closer to that date. I feel I'm comfortable with the 7%. So at least we're collecting, making provision for future. When I get closer there, say for example, there or there, I can adjust. If it stays at 15, we can see what it recalculated when we changed that figure. Now change it to 4,000 Rand. So here we can see, okay, now that 2,800 is not going to be enough because now it tells me I need 4,000 Rand. So I just update this. 4,000. And there you go. And it will apply that escalation, average 7%. To me, it is not that critical. I think currently CPI is still at 5.9%. 7%, I feel, is a good average over the long term to apply. Does that satisfy?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, sorry, I forgot one thing. No, two things. At the end of your financial year, because this is for 10 years, so when you're going to work on the next budget, obviously, you don't want to change all these figures. You just want to add the years at the end. So this is what I do. Now I'm going to hide 2023. I need to add another year. Okay, it's a column before. Just let me unhide this because I've already done it. It's already there. And you can see it just carries on these values with the formulas for you. So I can now carry on. You don't need to just stick to 10 years. If you want to do your projections for the next 15 years, you add your years here, but you just hide it when you present it to the body corporate at the HM. And then I will just change that to 2034, and that's it. Now, of course, I need to hide this one because I'm now finished with this. We're now going to do 2024. So I just hide this. Okay. And then I have my plan for the next 10 years. And of course, now I need to see, okay, look at these dates here. Where do I see 2031? That one there, 2033, future placements. Yeah, doesn't seem like we need to do any work. Then as you get closer, you will realize that there is stuff that you need to go and do. So you see that I've hidden the previous year. So let me just unhide, show all the comments. You can see here is my whole history since 2017. And I can see what I did in which year. So it gives me an overall picture of my history as well. Gives me a nice view. You can see we did a lot of work in the first couple of years. If you look at the bottoms there at the annual provisions, you can see that it was quite high for a number of years. And then it started to come down. This is the one that we played with. You can see that there it goes up again. That is the nature of this thing. You can forecast, Then you get actual figures and you enter that and it will change that. 24. Now I want to recalculate my levies. These levies here, the formula is dependent on this value here. So every time I hide the previous year, I need to adjust this formula in here. So I've added a little note there, is remember to change the first term in the formula to the next column value every year. So we know that 2023 was column S. Now we need to change it to column T. So in our formula bar, we go up there, change that to T, because that's the only one you need to change in the formula, and this one as well, from S to T. Okay, so then it will give you the correct recalculation for you. That is important just to remember that every year. Otherwise, it's going to calculate it on the hidden column and you're going to wonder, why doesn't it change? Every year I change it, but that thing stays the same. So that will be the reason why. Okay.
If you change the amount of units there, it will also work only on the amount of units you're giving. You've got 14 and 14. So if we have 6, we'll just have one column with 6 units.
Yes, you will just have your 6.
6 there.
Yes, so you'll put in your 6,
Okay.
the square meterage, and the total square meterage that you get from your sectional plan, and your PQ you also get from your sectional plan. So you just need to ensure that these values are as per your sectional plan. Okay with that?
Yes,
We'll
thank
have
you.
lots of questions once we start using this. You'll have lots of questions. Email will be full.
Yes, that's no problem. If you start with it, I don't mind, you can send it to me and I can have a look at it and we can have an individual Zoom meeting and thrash it out
That's
for
fantastic.
you. Yes, so
Thank you, Tinus,
I'm retired, so I'm available.
so much for the help. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much from my side as well. Really appreciate it.
Okay, I hope you found it useful.
Yes. Yeah, very much.
Okay, guys,
Thanks.
enjoy your evening.
We'll get back to you, Tinus,
Yes,
soon.
I will send you the link for the recording if you want
Thank
to
you.
have a look at it.
Yes, please, thank you.
Good evening.